Sup, y'all? Breezy here, and this is The Desert Road. Now, you're probably wondering, why is this girl starting yet another podcast? She has two others that she hasn't even finished working on. Well, I do plan on getting back to those. That's just a matter of time. But I feel like this is my call. I feel like I should be starting this podcast right now. I tried to with the other ones, but yeah. But this is my new podcast, like I said. And if you listen to the trailer, I have no business starting this podcast whatsoever. Um, I am far from the person that should be talking about God. Yes, I am a born again Christian. Yet, I am far from a preacher, but I'm a believer for sure. And for the very first episode of The Desert Road, I thought it would be appropriate to share what exactly is the Desert Road. Well, most of you know the Desert Road is the most well known Bible stories that you probably know. And you may know the story of Philip and the Ethiopian onage. And this will take place in Acts 8:26 to 40. And it's the story about breaking barriers, listening to the nudge from the soul, and the idea that no one is an outsider in the eyes of the divine. Now, like I said, I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while. I tried to with Southern Grace and Sass, and I think now I have a feeling that I've been called that this is the right time to do this podcast. Because we live in a world where being Christian is mixed up in politics. And here's my heads up. If you want to discuss politics in the comments, this isn't the place for you. Bye bye. But if you're here for an actual Christian podcast, I'm your girl. I don't believe in mixing. I don't believe in posting politics online because that just creates pretty much stupid stuff, stupid arguments online that people just love to rage bait people on, and we're not doing that. This is a safe place, for anybody who wants to listen. But yeah, but here we are. But the story of the desert road was starts with unexpected instructions with Philip, who was a deacon and an evangelist, who was busy who was busy successful in his work in Samaria. And this is when an angel of the Lord gave him a strange and specific demand. Um, and you can find this in Acts 8:26, and it tells us, "Go south to the desert, to the road, the desert road that goes from Jerusalem to Gaza." And he left a crowded city for a dusty, barren road that didn't make much sense on paper, but went anyway. And it makes me think, if you have you ever been in a situation where you were told to do something without context? You're probably trying to figure out why you were told that. My personal overthinking self would go with the five W's and the how. You know what I'm talking about, the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. Yep. Now, the irony is that if you asked me to go on a trip out of the blue, I'm going to say yes to you without a doubt. So here's my question. Why did Philip go without understanding? Was it because God told him to? Did Philip question God as to why he was being instructed? Or what would you have done in that situation? Now, here's the thing. There is a meeting that Philip encounters on this road. He encounters a high ranking official from Ethiopia, who was a treasurer of the Kandake, who is the queen of who the queen of the Ethiopians was. And this man was sitting in his chariot and returning home from worshipping in Jerusalem. And the man even read to Philip aloud his scroll in the prophet Isaiah. And the Holy Spirit told Philip to go to the chariot. I know, freaky, right? And Philip ran alongside it and heard what the man was reading. He asked a simple question, a piercing question. Do you understand what you are reading? Now, here's the thing. The social anxiety side of me would have been mortified to do something like that. If you know me at all, I am a true introvert through and through. Um, so I try to avoid stuff like that if I can help it. hence why I'm talking to a camera. So, but I would have been trying to find a way to politely leave this man. So, but here's the thing, I grew up in the South where manners, they're not an option. And I was talking to someone today who believes manners were forced on him and he didn't believe in them. And I told him, you live in the South and that's considered rude. But I also think he's an absolute so. But I am curious though if Philip was questioning why he was stopping to listen to him. And I do believe that you meet people in your life in the least likely of places. But yeah, now this official's response was humble and honest, asking, "It's like, how can I, unless someone explains it to me?" And he invited Philip up into his chariot. And the specific passage he was reading was about a sheep led to the slaughter, who remained silent. And this was a prophecy Christians identify as Jesus. Now, the official would ask Philip if the prophet was talking about himself or someone else. See, here's the thing. Before introverts and extroverts were a thing, I'm extremely convinced Philip was an extrovert. I am extremely convinced on that one. And that's okay. We need um introverts and we need our extroverts. We need to have someone do the talking for us, right? Um Now, there was a transformation starting with that passage, and Philip told him the good news about Jesus. And as they traveled along the desert road, they came to a body of water. The Ethiopian official didn't hesitate, and he said, "Look, here is water. What can stand in the way of being baptized?" They both went down in the water, and Philip baptized him right there. Then there was a disappearing act, but we all have a disappearing act in all of us. And that is why they invented the Irish goodbye. I truly believe that. But this story ends with a supernatural plot twist that we don't see coming, right? And as soon as they come up out of the water, the Spirit of the Lord snatched Philip away, and he suddenly found himself in Azotus, continuing his preaching, while the Ethiopian official went on his way back home rejoicing. I would have been like, what just happened here? Like, you baptized this guy, then you're being snatched up to go back to preaching? Like, seriously, that is just wow. Like, was he meant to go down this road? Did God know he was going to meet this person? I am a believer that God puts people in our life for a reason. He gives us, he sends us down these desert roads and to the right time and place, and we have to just obey God and trust Him. But why does this story matter? Well, think of the desert road as a symbol, as something like sometimes think of the desert road as the most important moments in life happen in this quote unquote desert, the quiet, lonely, and seemingly unproductive places. And here's the thing: in this era, the Ethiopian official would have been considered an outsider because of his nationality and the status of Enoch. And the story that signaled his faith of the Bible was moving beyond local borders to the ends of the earth. Now, Philip's willingness to leave a successful ministry to talk to just one person is a classic lesson from intuition and being present. Now, I have to ask you, what part of the story stands out to you the most? I'm very curious. Was it the divine timing of the meeting or the official's immediate decision to get baptized? And here's the thing, life is a desert road. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's going to happen on that encounter. And I truly believe in that. Um, now, I want to talk more briefly about this desert road because this road was primarily refers to the encounter between Philip, the evangelist, and the Ethiopian eunuch. And it may seem like a brief travel anecdote, but it also carries theological and historical weight. It marks the gospel officially broke past geographical and social boundaries, headed toward the ends of the earth. Yeah, social boundaries for sure, because I don't think I could have done it, honestly. I really couldn't. Um, but it also includes radical inclusion. This is why it matters. The most striking significance is who the story features: Philip, who meets an Ethiopian onarch. Here's the barrier: under Old Testament law, onarches were excluded from a full assembly of God's people. In the breakthrough was the fact that he was baptizing him, and Philip demonstrates that under the new covenant, physical statuses or outsiders identified no longer disqualifies anyone. It fulfills the prophecy of Isaiah 56 that onyx would have a place in the house. There's also divine orchestration. It emphasizes that God is the architect of coincidence. Here's the command: Philip is told by an angel to go to a desert road. This place that logically seems useless for a ministry compared to the revival he was leading in Samaria, right? Well, here's the timing of it. He arrives exactly when the Ethiopian is reading a specific passage from Isaiah 53, the suffering servant. Here's the lesson from that. It teaches that the individual's obedience in dry places is just as important as high profile successes in crowded cities. And I want to also talk about the pattern of this. The dialogue provides a blueprint of the early church in understanding. And the question is, do you understand what you're reading? The necessity of guidance. And his reply was, how can I unless someone guides me? Highlights the importance of the communal interpretation and teaching. And through the lens of a Christ-centered, Philip starts with the exact scripture and told him the good news about Jesus. And this signifies for the early Christians all of the Old Testament pointed directly to Christ. This was also the birth of the African church. Now, the eunuch was a high-ranking official, okay? And while he went on his way rejoicing, he took his faith back to the powerful kingdom. And traditions hold the encounter laid for the groundwork for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, one of the oldest communities in the world. But also, here's the thing, let's look at the symbols and the significance of this, because I think that's really important here. And that the desert road symbolizes a tradition of wilderness that stays where God works in quiet and unexpected ways. How many times has he done that for you? Think about it. If not, he's probably working on it right now. Isaiah 53, that is the bridge between the Jewish prophecy and the reality of Jesus' sacrifice. The water in the desert represents the immediate availability of grace, even in barren circumstances. I believe that God will lead us down a desert road. We may not understand why he's leading us down that exact road, but we do as we obey. We have to trust him. And I think the desert road is a great name for this podcast because as Christians, it's our job to read the Bible and understand it at the end of the day. But that is it for this episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day.